Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan, back for another special edition. It's the Matador Mob Mailbag. Appreciate all those questions submitted this week. Got another long list, so let's get rolling. If you're ready, Chris, we'll begin with Wayne. Got another open week coming up just around the corner, and Wayne asked about what the schedule is for the team and coaches during an open week and wondering whether or not, given the prior result, we may see any changes with that schedule. What do you know about how they spend their time or the routine of an open week typically?
Yeah, it's important to keep in mind that, Joey's team had been 2-0 in their previous two bye weeks, or coming off of those bye weeks in the first two seasons. And you'd also replicated something similar, I guess, leading into bowl games when you won both bowl games too. So this was the exception, unfortunately. I wish it had been more the norm. In that you would have, held form. I just know that, this past couple of weeks, that first week was a lot about the young players and trying to take the load off of the older ones. Maybe you do something different, with trying to keep your edge or stay in a routine. Some people don't like bye weeks. I personally did, just because you got to get away from it a little bit, and I think some of those kids did. But I don't think anybody liked the result. And Joey and his staff, they recruited a ton during the bye week too, on that Thursday, Friday, Saturday-ish. But as far as like the way you would schedule it, and maybe you just approach it differently, like you talk about some different things, or because at the point that they get their second bye week, which everybody's dealing with multiple bye weeks this season in the Big 12 Conference, maybe you have a different vibe at that point. Maybe there's something going on differently where you want to look at different players or schemes or whatever. You just don't know what it's going to look like, because you're in Fort Worth, you're in Ames, and then you're home versus Colorado before that next bye week hits. I mean, I don't know what it looks like at that point, because it's on paper, it looks pretty daunting between now and then. So, but that's also when you get into redshirt territory. And what I mean by that is maybe you have extra time with some of your younger players to work with them to get them into one of their 4 games in those last 2. That may be something where it looks a little bit different, and that may depend on what situation you're in. Are you still fighting for a spot in Arlington? Has that ship sailed? You already have an eye on the next year? I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to go about it, but I bet they do tweak something because the last time out was not ideal.
All right, thank you for that question, Wayne. This question from Cameron. No, it's only been 2.5 seasons, but with the defense being at the bottom of the FBS, is Tim DeRuyter's seat starting to get warm? What do you think?
I think everybody wants them to play better defense. I mean, Joey's been talking about it for a month. Statistically, it's not very good at all. And I think everybody understands that. And I think that leads to, if the turnovers were still coming in bunches, or I say that takeaways were coming in bunches, I think you can live with some of this. But when you are giving up yardage and you're getting run on and you're not taking the ball away, it's a problem. Because in Tucson, it was okay, between the 20s, it was a little looser, but then it tightened up in the red zone, and then you were able to take it away 3 times. And that equaled, I think, 18 points for your offense. Those takeaways did. You were able to score 18 points off of those 3 takeaways. And I think that it's worth pointing out, and we touched on this a couple of weeks ago, Cowan. You mentioned Emmett Jones. We've mentioned, Stephen Hamby are no longer on your staff and you've replaced them with Juice Johnson and with Clay McGuire, there hadn't been any really turnover on that defensive side of the ball. It's been pretty much the same, which the continuity like this is very rare in the sport. So we'll see kind of what that looks like. If you finish the season ranked 125th in total defense and ranked 121st in scoring defense or whatever it may be, yeah, the youth excuse is legitimate. I think there's been some injuries there, but yeah, at some point, Coach McGuire will have to ask some tough questions, and I think Tim's trying, so we'll just kind of see what that looks like. But I think it's a fair question to ask. Yes.
I've always felt like Tim DeRuyter would be very far down the list of those that you want to make a change with, because I've also viewed him, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I've viewed him as arguably the most accomplished coach on the entire staff. I mean, he's got an extended resume, DC head coach or otherwise. So I've sort of taken that reason to feel the way that I do. And I'm also very anti, hey, let's just pull the plug, fire a guy, bring him in again. Because it seems like from a fan standpoint, Texas Tech has just been on some amazing run of only hiring idiots, I guess, if we're to believe the fans. It's like, wait, did they just become incapable of coaching when they got the Tech? Or what's the deal? The deal might be that Jimmy's and Joe's are not there in enough supply just yet to make guys who are otherwise quality coaches really look great. But, I mean, like I do, running through the stretch, I mean, all these OCs come through, fire him. Like, well, they've been good elsewhere. Or they just get dumb when they get here? They get incapable when they get here? Or could the fan possibly be wrong? I don't know. Something else to consider, I suppose. All right. Thank you.
Well, and one more thing. You who knows what'll happen. And sometimes guys leave by their own accord. It's not like you're pushing the button either, but you just start all over, and it's guys that are in the same scheme, and there's an understanding of what's expected. That certainly helps. And there's a lot of youth on that side of the ball specifically that is, close. They're just not there yet. That, boy, you'd like to see it through. But I certainly understand, because the buck stops with Coach McGuire. And at some point when the questions start getting asked and they're too loud or the results just aren't there, he's the one that ultimately has to answer for it. So I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but I certainly get. But what's funny to me is there's not a lot of public criticism of Tim DeRuyter at all. It's all pointed to Zach Kitley. Right. And what's funny is his scoring, total offense, scoring offense, all that, they're ranked in the top 20. Basically, and
well, everybody in the stands is an OC. They're all play callers,
right? And you're averaging this by now, averaging like 38, 39 points a game, with a very subpar offensive line. So, anyways, but it's just we'll see.
It's not like I've been a huge fan of everybody that's come through the program, but I mean, most of them have been successful elsewhere before they get here, or they might be successful after they leave here. And it's just like, wait, is Tech just on some historical run of only hiring the worst, and then we figure that out when they get here? Or is it possible that there's more to it than just this guy under the headset that's screwing things up? I think it may be a little more nuanced than that. Thank you for that question, Cameron. Let's get to this one from Justin K. And as a part of this question, I got to send a shout out to the Schulenberg Shorthorns. That's a Schulenberg Shorthorn shout out. Say it 3 times fast. And Justin's son, who was doing some heavy lifting in the offensive backfield as a defender, racking up some sacks. I'm asking Justin if maybe he can spare a few, send him on out to Lubbock. I don't know when he can get here, but nonetheless, shout out to the Schulenberg Shorthorns. He asked this question on a totally different subject. First, today's episode brought to you by ZBiotics. ZBiotics Pre Alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre Alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. So just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you're going to feel your best tomorrow. So go to ZBiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use our code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money back guarantees. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they're going to refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to ZBiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout for 15% off. Today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks. Testing your skills on PrizePicks this football season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports and the best way to spice up any game, anytime. You think you got what it takes to win up to 100 times your money? All you got to do is select 2 to 6 players, pick more or less on their projected stats, place your entry, and boom, you're ready to roll. PrizePicks is not only the best way to get action on sports in most states, including Texas, but PrizePicks also puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When the picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. With easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and a giant selection of players, projections, and stat categories, it's no surprise that PrizePicks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So get in on the fun and the winning and download the PrizePicks app today and use our code LOCKEDONCollege, and you're going to get $50 instantly when you play only $5. Again, that's our code LOCKEDONCollege on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you just play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. With PrizePicks, run your game. Asking what we recall or what you may remember about the lowest class divisions from 6A to 1A, whatever it might be, that a Tech player has been recruited and ultimately got a scholarship from Texas Tech. He does add that he knows a shifty D lineman from Schulenburg that's wrecking shop. But do you remember any, Chris, from a smaller classification that might stand out to you? And I would even ask, maybe not just one that got a scholarship. Is there one that's made an impact somewhere here or there? Anybody come to mind?
No, the kid on the roster now, Adam Hill from Stanton, he hasn't made an impact yet, but he was at a very small level and he's I think a preferred walk-on. So I'm not answering the question correctly, but golly, I'd have to go back and see like what classification what Wes Welker was at, because I think he was at a very, very small classification in Oklahoma. He seemed to make quite the impact
I remember his name
in college and in the NFL. But yeah, I don't. I'd have to go back and look at that a bit closer. I'm sure there's some, probably plenty. I just off the top of my head, that's the best I can do. My apologies.
Well, and we got from Adam Hill from Albany. I don't want to get the Albany up in arms.
Yeah,
we got friends in Stanton too, but
I botched it. Yeah, Albany. Woo. Yeah. Albany.
Thank you for that question.
Sorry. Yes, Albany.
Justin K.
Yeah.
And thank you for being out there, Schulenburg Shorthorns. What a name.
Where did I come up with Stanton? What is that?
There was a lot of S's there in that question. I think I biased the jury.
What is going on?
All right, we got another question here on a recruiting front I wanted to get to. This one from James. Can you give us any percentage chance on flipping Woodfork, Schramm, a Cincy defensive tackle, or any others? I was tempted to just make up some names and throw them at you, but I thought that would be mean.
Yeah,
I'm assuming you know who some of these guys are, but
Chad Wolford,
campus, right?
Logan Schramm. Those are the two kids committed to TCU, and then there was a defensive tackle that's committed to Cincinnati in town. This is coming down to. This is a revenue sharing question as much as it is anything, and
really,
it's scheme, it's fit, it's relationship. There's just a lot more to it, but they were interested enough to want to come check it out. And again, you could argue that was the worst weekend they could have been here or the best. We'll see. I think a lot of those kids had really good visits. I think, Yeah, it's just it kind of hits home. I was walking through the bowels of the stadium after I'd interviewed Coach McGuire, after the game Saturday, and I'm spent. I'm like, golly, our pets' heads are falling off. This sucks, right? I'm like, I just want to go home and whatever. And I heard somebody say to somebody else down the hallway, like, man, damn, now we got to go recruit. And I'm like, oh yeah, all those kids were here this weekend. And I was just focused on the game, but that night you got to take them out, you got to feed them, you got to put on your best smiley face, you got to put your best pitch forward. And then the next morning you got to continue to do the same. And before they get on that airplane and go home. So, I mean, that's when the job must be tricky, when you got to muster up some energy and polish it up, and can't sit there and feel sorry for yourself. Like, you got to go reel in the next crop or try to. So we'll see, but there's a lot going on here with the settlement case, the revenue sharing component, and all those things on how people are treating incoming freshmen, I should say. So,
yeah. Okay. Thank you for that question, James. This one from Brian. The Big 12 is a week-to-week league, he says. Anyone can beat anyone. So what's your advice to fans and how to deal with results on any given Saturday? And to put it another way, how do fans not get too cocky or lose their on a week-to-week basis? Have you found the answer to that, Chris?
And it's not just the Big 12, it's the sport. I mean, I saw something out of the SEC the other day. This is the first time going into November there's been no undefeated team ever. I mean, I just think it's the sport. I mean, it's the NIL is equal to playing field. Not everybody can hoard position groups and recruits and all that. It's a little more spread out. We had talked about earlier in the week about showing up ready to play week in and week out, and having that component with it, because the talent gap is smaller. And I think, to answer your question, one, you have to understand, you have to almost look, I'm looking at BYU and Iowa State, and I'm very envious. They've just kind of figured it out. They've gotten on a roll. Why can't I be that team? But you have to understand, the majority of the country is dealing with inconsistencies, and as long as you kind of expect that or understand it, it's easy not to get too high or too low. I don't ever talk smack to like buddies of mine that went to other schools. I say less because I know just like my ass kicking is just around the corner, right? So I think that's one way. And when all else fails, vodka.
I think that's a good alternative option.
Yeah. And responsibly, I would say. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Which is the name of the game for any college football fan: responsibly and reasonably.
But say less on the smack talk. Understand that right around the corner, there could be an ass kicking, or a non-excitable bad special teams day, however you want to phrase last Saturday, and you can get good surprises too, right? I'm so jealous of like the Indianas or the Iowa States, the BYUs, but we'll see how those schools end up. We'll see how they all finish up. Because you look at them right now and you think, they're not all going undefeated. I mean, some of them could end up 8-4, 9-3, and then you're like, okay, well, that's a good year, but you could end up in the same. And how do you get there? So,
does it matter to anybody that BYU's head coach is in his 9th season? Does it matter to anybody that Matt Campbell has been there for God knows how long in Ames? Just throwing it out there. And BYU was 5-7 a year ago. They were 4-9 back in 2017. Pull the plug. They didn't. Has it been all roses since then? No, but you've had a few good seasons. 10-win season a few years back, 11-win season for BYU. They're 7-0 so far. We've seen a 7-0 start wind up with an 0-5 finish. So we know anything can happen in the land of college football, but just throwing that out there. As a Red Raider fan, my typical advice is never bet on or against Texas Tech. Just flip your coin. I typically approach most seasons expecting nothing and just being happy if I get anything beyond that. So I don't know if some can deal with that type of approach. You maybe want to be a lot more emotionally engaged, but that's just the way that I approach it at this point in my 4 decades of Red Raider fandom. All right, thank you for that question, Brian. This question from Honest Kills. Interesting family name. What do 6 to 7 year students study while they're still in college playing football? Do they just pull up to practice, or do they go to class? I know this is kind of a unique time, Chris, but what do these guys do when they've been here for 8 years?
Yeah, most of those folks are on their second or third degree. Okay. I think you're required to have 9 hours a semester to qualify as a full-time student. But I think you can kind of. These are the kids, though, that are squeezing everything out of the institution, just like the institution has tried to squeeze everything out of them. Mm-hmm. And if you play your cards right, you can leave here with a master's, man. Which those are. Sure. I mean, I didn't have the intestinal fortitude, the mental toughness, or the smarts to sit through class and end up with a master's degree in anything. So I think, you kind of choose your path on what what you want to do. There's a lot of kids out here that are very intrigued by the oil and gas industry. I don't know what secondary or master's degree that you can kind of get into there, because sometimes that's a pretty big commitment on some of the things that it takes in that level. But I mean, I know his dad listens to this show, but that's what Mason Tharp wants to do. He wants to get in the oil and gas industry, and I think he's on his second degree. I don't, as far as what in the oil and gas industry, I'm not sure.
Gotcha.
Because there's a variety of different avenues you can go in, but yeah, I mean, it's a fair question, because what I hear them asking is, do you just run out of classes to take? No. Because you must be in 9 hours to qualify as a student athlete. Gotcha. I think that's to be considered a full-time student.
This one from Jared, and he admits this question is purely depression motivated. Plus or minus 400 through the air for Texas Christian this weekend.
You could argue that if it was a plus, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You could argue that if it was a plus, that's a really bad thing. I would look at two things there. How many takeaways have you mixed in, and are you able to pressure this kid at all? And then what's the rushing total, more importantly? Because if it's 400 and like 58 yards rushing, may not be so bad. Is this with a big lead and they're having to throw? There's all kinds of ways to play that, but they're going to get theirs. There's no doubt. I mean, they're averaging 330, anyway. And so they will manufacture, but as we've kind of seen at times, there's some hollow yardage too to be had.
Sure.
It's all about points being scored. So, yeah, I'm going to say minus.
I'm going to go under too, because I'm going to assume out of just sheer desperation, we are throwing everything at the quarterback to try and kill him. And maybe, I don't know, something you find is successful and you're able to limit some things that way. Of course, it could go the other way, and maybe it's not 400, it's 600. I don't know. Okay, thank you for that question. Ed asks this question. Very simple yet difficult question. Who is this team? First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Say you're watching the game, you get hit with a hunch, an instinctual calling. Well, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're going to place your bets to keep up with everything going down in real time as you submit that slip. And right now, FanDuel is going to get you started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with only a $5 bet out the gate at FanDuel.com. Ed asks this question. Very simple yet difficult question. Who is this team?
Yeah.
Do we have an identity yet?
They're balanced on offense. I think, and then this is where you get into why the question is being asked, because I would have said they're balanced on offense. I think your identity is kind of Taj, but the play action stuff, that you're really good on special teams and that you're opportunistic on defense. However, the last time out, not good on special teams and not opportunistic on defense. Hence the reason that this is a good question. So I still think you're trying to – I think this week really tells you a lot. You could – and again, I think I said something similar earlier in the week, but you could really make an argument that this is a kind of a defining moment of this season for this team.
Yeah.
This upcoming game, because if it's similar to last Saturday, then I think not only do you have to ask who you are, but you start to go, well, part of that answer is you're not very good, or you're just inconsistent, or whatever. I mean, Taj is going to be he's going to do his thing. He's going to get his. I would say, and so you're still going to be a kind of a running team, and you're going to play off of that running game and all that, but as far as the other things go, good question. Are you? Who is this team? Is this team improving? Question mark.
Mm-hmm.
Is this team? What is their identity on defense? Are they still pretty good on special teams? Can they continue to be balanced on offense? I mean, all fair questions. I guess we'll get more answers on Saturday, but I think you can really draw some bigger conclusions after this game and see how they respond.
Yeah,
because I'm as curious as anybody.
Yeah, gut check week, without question. All right, thanks for that question, Ed. This one from Jeff, who's calling himself Korea Jeff. This is a man in South Korea, I believe.
Okay.
Who says, if obviously things don't go well the remainder of the season, would Joey's seat turn a bit warmer, or is he safe no matter what happens this year?
I mean, I don't really envision any scenario to where he's in any kind of trouble. And you can disagree with that. Coaches are always coaching for their jobs or anything. I just do not believe in any way that the right answer, no matter if you lost out, that to pull the plug on it, because how soon we forget. You have to forget you have to remember where you've come from, is how I should say that.
Yeah.
Back-to-back winning records in the Big 12, first time since 2009. Won his first two, went to bowl games in his first 2 years, won both of those games. And again, I get it. It's not been perfect. And everybody wants more, but you're sitting here at 5-2. And I can't really even entertain that conversation. That is just not what you're dealing with here at all. And I'll quote Cody Campbell, who has the most to say about this, as maybe as much as anybody, before the season even started. I don't know. Somebody put out a list of, potential hot seats or something like that. And he's like, yeah, you got him on the wrong list because he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that question. Kevin asks this question: in the upcoming revenue sharing era, what happens to the Matador Club? Is there changes on the horizon for it?
Yeah, I think that you'll get to hear a lot more about that in the coming week or so. I'll actually be kind of I'll be there's a meeting in Fort Worth, I think, over the weekend, that a presentation, if you will, and so we'll try to recap some of kind of the explanation that you're getting into here on kind of what this is all going to look like, what it means for Texas Tech. The gist is that I don't want to say the Matador Club is necessarily going away. Could it be rebranded or yeah, but I mean, ultimately, I think it ends up in-house.
Gotcha.
To where there's like Matador Club, Red Raider Club are one instead of two separate. But I don't know if anything is just purely going away. And I would say this too, they will need more of your help, not less.
Oh, great.
Well, because the price tag to play ball here is it's up there. I mean, it just is. And this is what this is all going to look like. There's going to be a 22-ish million bill due every year. Now that's pretty cheap compared to what the salary cap is in the NFL, when it's like, okay, I got a $225 million payroll every year. 22 doesn't sound like a whole lot. However, this is brand new money that no school has ever had to pay out before. And guess what? Now that bill is due yearly, and it will only increase to where we're like talking about, like, say by 2030, they're saying it could be closer to 30 million. And so where's this money coming from? And it's not all coming from, John Q. Donor or Jason Billy Badass Big Donor. It's coming from institution. It's coming from planned gifts. It's coming from a variety of different sources. But that's a bill that's in the Matador Club, Red Raider Club. However they kind of put that together under the school umbrella. They need help. They will need financial help for sure.
Let's see. Scott's asking about potential changes to the coaching staff after the season. I feel like we've already answered that or discussed it at least, and we don't know how many games you're winning and losing, I guess, could determine that. Mark asks, is it too early to talk about basketball? The answer to that question is no, and you've probably already taken in an episode where we do talk about that. But he asked another question that I thought was interesting. Does Mike Leach and Joey McGuire share any similarities to this point in both of their careers with Tech? What do you remember about the first 2 or 3 years in the Mike Leach era?
I think there were some inconsistencies there, trying to get your foot in the ground and trying to figure out who you are, who you were going to be. I think that this age of the sport is very difficult to maneuver through because of so much of what we just discussed a second ago, how different the sport looks. What Mike was dealing with was trying to create an identity, trying to get his offense. But there was plenty of times where that offense, as it got going, it wasn't very explosive at all. It was a lot of swing passes, a lot of you were 7-6 there early on. You were trying to figure out, okay, what's our schedule ultimately want to look like? How do we want to operate this thing? I think the one difference that Mike had that Joey had is I think there's a lot more financial support for Joey because there needs to be. I think that, I'm not sure if everybody, donor, fan, administration, and all that was on the same page early on with Mike. And I think they large in part that they are with Joey. But I do think they are both what the school needed at the time. And so from that standpoint, they do have a very large similarity because I think that you desperately needed an identity when Mike got here. And, Gerald Myers, to his credit, was like, we want to light the scoreboard up. That we're going to go hire either Rich Rodriguez or Mike Leach. We're going to settle on Mike, and we want to light the scoreboard up. That's what we want, and then Mike began to change the game, change the sport with his coaching staffs, with inside receivers, and a scheme that it didn't win at all. It didn't compete for conference championships initially, but it gave you a schematic advantage. And I think Joey has been something that everybody could rally around when you desperately needed that. And I think because whenever you hire him, everybody's kind of on a different page. Administration's got one opinion. Big donors have a different opinion. Fans have a different opinion. Like, what are we? Where are we going? What's coming our way? And I think Joey's been able to kind of glue a lot of that together, to his credit. And he is a 365 guy. He is out and about and trying to drum up support or engaging or recruiting, a ton. So, I don't know if I really answered your question, but I'm just trying to give you kind of what I remember from those, those tenures in its infancy, specifically back to Mike.
Yeah, Leach 7-6, 7-5 first 2 years, lost 2 bowl games, and then kind of broke through in year number 3 in 2002. They wind up winning 9 games, lost 5 that year, so a little different schedule as far as a 9-5 record is concerned. But they broke in to the top 25, just barely getting into number 24, and you smoked Clemson in a bowl game in the Tangerine Bowl, and that was the first of 3 straight wins and 5 out of the next 6 in your bowl games. So kind of got some momentum and some wind in his sails there in the 3rd year. So McGuire still has the opportunity, obviously, to do that. Hopefully we see that continue. Thank you for that question. This question here, let's see. Let's go to Bruce. Who's the backup quarterback?
Will Hammond.
Thought so. I was going to take a guess, see if I was right or wrong. I thought so. But it did kind of seem like last week they called a timeout to keep him from having to go in after Morton knocks his helmet off. Is there any red shirt incentive in doing that?
Yeah,
you don't want him in right now.
You're trying to protect yourself to see if you can't. This was part of why I asked Joey after the game, almost because I was kind of like, well, what? You keep. Barron got targeted. There was a roughing the passer penalty, and I'm like, and he's in here in a blowout game. Like, what is going on? And Joey was like, well, we're trying to maintain Will's red shirt. Well, but you could have put Cam Brown in there. But Joey said Barron didn't want to come out. He wanted to go back in there. He's just like trying to. He wanted to play, and I think that. So here's the red shirt dynamic. Will Hammond, I think, he played against North Texas, and I'm trying to remember if he's played in another game or not. But you're trying to protect yourself to where if Barron were to not be able to play in one of these games, that you don't burn up, that you don't tip the. And at some point here, when you get to a few more games in, then you won't care because it's like, okay, now we're to the point where we can't go over the 4, and so turn him loose. But I think at this point you're trying to protect yourself because I think there's a pretty drastic difference between Will Hammond and Cam Brown in the quarterback room right now. There's a pretty drastic difference between Will Hammond and Jake Strong as well. I mean, Will Hammond has eclipsed. He is your backup quarterback. He is the future right now after Barron Morton. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that question. This question here from Jason. For me specifically, I guess I'm getting called out. What's your beer and or drink of choice while watching the game and dealing with Tech football heartbreak? Well, I'm on the clock whenever they're in Jones Stadium. But otherwise, Jack Daniels, baby. Jackie D. Jack Daniels, if you please. No reason to trick it up. Unless you want to put an umbrella in it, that's up to you. This question from Mike, and it kind of pairs into another question that we had from Fernando regarding Texas Christian's propensity for blitzing. Mike is asking, with a blitz-heavy team, can we expect more 11-man or 12-man personnel? Do you think tight formations are going to be a part of the game to help with chipping ends and things like that? And Taj on more delayed routes to help pick up blitzes. You think there's some extra help there to try to offset that?
Yes and no. I don't think. I think you want to try to attack them how you see fit. You can't adjust because they're all, as we've heard, they're all over the place, right? There's not a lot of tendencies there. So this may be a week where they're really light on the blitz. I don't think you want to go in assuming too much. I think you try to do, and again, I'll say this, repeat it from what I mentioned earlier in the week. There may be a segment or several plays in this game where it's like you feel like you're beating your head against the wall, or you run right into a blitz, and it's like, what are you doing? There also may be times where you crease and gash them when they, feast or famine type stuff.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot on Sheridan Wilson in this game, which is a bit scary. There's a lot on Barron Morton in this game too, on what he is seeing, what he's checking to into or out of or whatever. Kind of that chess match, if you will, and as long as you're taking care of the football, because I'll give you this stat from TCU last year, and it's kind of what we're seeing with them this year. They were 4-1 last year when they had more than one takeaway. Okay, when they had more than one takeaway, they were 4-1. When they didn't get that, they were 1-6, and that equaled a 5-7 record. So, and their identity this year has been the turnover. I mentioned that. Josh Hoover, his 6 interceptions have been in 3 of the last 4 games. They fumbled the ball 9 times. In their 7 games, somebody has recovered one of their fumbles in 5 of those 7. So you got to mix in some of that, but you also, Barron just needs to take care of the football. And he made a mistake or underthrew the one last week. That's the only interception he's had at home. all year. That's the first interception he had since that Washington State game, which feels like a long time ago. And I think that he's thrown interceptions in the 2 games that you've lost. When he's kept it clean,
yep.
I hate to oversimplify, but I mean, it's just like it's just staring you in the face.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way this thing will go. And it sucks that it's all on him or it's all on your defense to create some of those takeaways, but that's the reality of it.
Well, and it's like, who else would it be on? The guys in the stands. I mean, you're out there, you're in the uniform. Obviously, it's on you guys. If you're giving it away as an offense, you better be taking it away more as a defense. If you're keeping it clean as an offense, puts a little less pressure, obviously, on the defense to create those takeaways, though they are still nice. Ryan asks this question: what's new with the kicker situation? I've noticed Garcia taking PAT in field goal situations. Is he the guy now? No more rotations? What do you think?
I'm not ready to say that yet. I think that, what I'm ready to say is that they will continue to rotate unless there is an end of the game or end of a half scenario. Maybe I don't know if I'm going to say end of half, and be like super sure San Diego. Gino's kicking that one at the end of a game, and I'd be willing to bet that maybe he breaks the tie on the end of a half too, if it's a pressure kick or one of those, or you're in a hurry or whatever. But I think that you'll continue to, but the stakes are getting a lot higher too. Like last week, they didn't get any opportunities, 0. So as far as the field goals.
Yeah.
But I don't think that there's been a decision made there, but there's always, the rules can get bent, and it's Kenny Perry's, it's his competition, and it's not exactly fair. But I think he's trying to be, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I think there's some indication as to what the call is when you're in some of those clutch moments we've already seen, just like you were kind of alluding to there. All right. Appreciate all the questions being submitted this week. Keep them coming. Appreciate all of you for being out there mixing it up with us inside the Matador Mob. If you dare to do the same, check out the show notes for the link. Try on a free 14-day trial, your direct line to Chris and myself anytime on any subject. Chris, appreciate your time as always, man. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely. We love you all. Appreciate the time, as you mentioned, and hopefully I'll see some folks at old Eamon Carter in Fort Worth over the weekend. So it should be fun. Hopefully.
Yes. Yeah, there's an asterisk to that. Should be fun. We hope. All right. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks for being out there, particularly those everydayers and sometimes those twice-a-dayers. Thank you so much for your time. For Chris, I'm Casey. We hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.